Still lovely, lovely teachers. Well, thank you very much for being here with us today. Just welcome to Global Teachers Festival 2025. This is the second week of the Global Teachers Festival. So welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us. Just to make sure that you are in the right place, this is the second session. This is a 2 p.m. session, UK time. Some of us might be early in the morning, some of us might be later in the afternoon. And just to recap, we already had 1 week for the Global Teachers Festival 2025. Last week we had a series of sessions. I was able to be there as a participant. A couple of them very interesting, and I really enjoyed them. This week I'll be here today as a host. So welcome everybody. Just as a reminder, these are our sessions for the second week. If you have not registered to one of them and you are still interested, go ahead and register. And let's see what we have for you. And just before we go on into the session today, as you probably already know, if you have been with us last couple of days, you'll be receiving a goodie bag within and your certificate of attendance within 1 week of this session. So 1 week from today, you'll be getting an email with your goodie bag and your certificate of attendance. And just in case you have any problems, you might have not gotten the goodie bag, you can write us, you can email us to eltwebinars@macmillaneducation.com. Okay, just in case. Greetings from Turkey, Georgia, from Argentina, from Morocco. Welcome, everybody. And what do we have for you today? Today we have a very interesting session. I'm very glad I'm here with you, hosting, being part of the session, because we have Jeff and we have Myriam today. The first session is by Jeff, where he's going to be talking about leveraging player. player, where we're going to be talking a little bit about video games. Interesting. And then Myriam talking about how to use characters, especially for young learners. So, without further ado, let's take a look at who Jeff Kuhn is. So let's see. Jeff, are you there? If you're there, instead of me reading, what you're all about, so let me just ask you a quick question. So how did you get into education? I'm very interested to hear that.
Ooh. Uh, so yeah, I got my undergrad in English, specifically English grammar, and then I went and worked in Japan. I taught English in Japan for 3 years, and I fell in love with language teaching and just the whole experience.
Well, Jeff, thank you for being here with us at the Global Teachers Festival 2025. So I'm going to leave the session for you. And just one reminder before I leave, teachers, I'll be in the chat room. If you have any, questions, and always leave questions in the Q&A, so we can make some times at the end, so I can read it to Jeff, and we can Jeff and answer them. So thank you, Jeff, and I'll stop sharing my screen. So the screen also is all yours.
All right. Thanks, Joss, and welcome everybody. It's a more reasonable 9 a.m. here in the East Coast of the United States, so I'm glad you could join us. Did a session earlier today at 5 and still had folks from Argentina and Mexico and lots of early risers, but good to see a huge of folks here. I've got the chat open on the side. And so as we go on, feel free to throw things in the chat. So while I'm talking here, we can take a look. So you may see me, jumping off to the side here a little bit to see where everybody's coming from and what everybody's thinking. And so good to have you. And thanks again to Macmillan for inviting me into this Global Teachers Festival, my first Global Teachers Festival. And so we're going to talk a little bit about video games and just games in general. And so, over in the chat there, if you're somebody who plays games, board games, card games, video games, whatever it may be, let us know in the chat and maybe the types of games you use, you play or maybe use in your classroom. And today we're going to think a little bit more kind of like big picture. So instead of focusing specifically on here's a way to implement a game into the classroom, we're going to think a little bit more about what it takes for video games to really like grip players and make them want to play. And are those tips and tricks that games do and use so well, can we use them in our own classroom? So, starting from there, let me share my screen here so everybody can see there. And maybe over in the chat, you can let me know if everybody can see that. So hopefully you can see that there. All right. And so, yeah, let's talk about this a little bit. So, one of the things I think is first most important to think about here is video games really are like a literacy, right? In the same way that, we read books or we listen to music or watch movies, we can understand how those things work. Video games are also a literacy. So, if you have students who are really video game literate, they may know a large amount of information about games that may be new to you or vice versa. You may be introducing students to games. There's a little bit of a learning curve there. So we can think about that a little bit. And one of the things that I like to think about when talk about video games as a literacy is that, in the same way when a teacher goes to their bookshelf and says, okay, today I'm going to be teaching the past perfect. We're going to pull that book off the shelf that says, okay, this is the best book I've got for this topic. We got to be able to do that with games too. Thinking about games as like a storytelling experience, having a depth, a literacy of games is really step one. You can step back and think, okay, here's what I want my students to experience today, and here's the learning I want to scaffold around that experience. What would be best? It might be, Kahoot. It might be something big like Fortnite. It might be a board game even like Settlers of Catan. So really important there to have like a wide berth of games to draw from and think about. Here's what I can use. So really, what I'm saying here is for professional experience and professional development, play more video games. That's the rule. And so if we think about this, what are those things that these games do really well? And so if we develop out that literacy and we can really start to understand where games can kind of fit into our classroom and start to tap into their psychological motivations they have on players. And I really like to tie this into Bloom's taxonomy. If I'm wanting my students to remember or understand something, I'm not sure games might be the best approach. But what games do really well and when they really entice players is when we push up further into Bloom's taxonomy and they can really provide a place for students to create, evaluate, analyze really difficult kind of problem solving based approaches to the classroom activities, right? So with that, we kind of think about Bloom's taxonomy there, but also Quentin Duro is a researcher who came up with the SAMR model. It says when we bring technology into the classroom, technology can do certain things. It can substitute, it can augment. But what games also do really well is they can help us redefine or modify what we can do in the classroom. So basically, can we do things in classrooms with games that we couldn't possibly do before? And again, could be a paper-based game, could be a video game. So kind of thinking about this a little bit, a great example here is this game Quandary. Great game and has a ton of great teacher resources on the web page for you to use too. But Quandary is basically just a debate. You have to separate fact from opinion and come up with a consensus amongst a group of people. It's really just kind of a debate activity that we might do in a classroom, but it lets us modify it so there's a level of abstraction there. Sometimes students might have difficulty talking about something that's close to them or personal to them, but we give it this science fiction overlay, same idea, but they're given this abstraction that lets us modify the activity a little bit more. So games can do that, give us a new situation in which to explore ideas that students may be unfamiliar with or uncomfortable with. So something else here, thinking about games or technology, redefinition under the SAMR model, we could use VR and something like Mission ISS, which lets students explore the International Space Station. This will be a radical redefinition of what's possible in the classroom, but it pushes what students can do further up into that Bloom's taxonomy model. Here now they get to explore and create and identify and discover. So how can we think about that? I like to say the foundation of good games in the classroom are strong verbs in our learning outcomes, right? And we'll get into that a little bit more. And so one of the things also that's really important from a player psychology point of view is there's lots of reasons that people play games. And sometimes that could be they're action oriented. They want to win. Other times people just want to create. On the far end of the spectrum, it's, well, what if I just built this thing? What if I made something? So, you may see your students all playing a game like Fortnite or something like that, where it's all about, competing and winning and being first person. But others may play something a little bit more like a Stardew Valley, where they're just immersed in a world and they just want to experience a little world. So, gamers and gamer motivation into one-stop shop. There's lots of different things to do things. Um, so kind of thinking about that, we have games where people just want to create like The Sims, or, they would just want to collect all those achievements. And, other games like World of Warcraft, where people just want to explore. And that's really a powerful motivator for players, is that ability to choose what they want to do and then act on that. So if we think about the best way to kind of grasp our players in the classroom is to give them more autonomy, let them make choices. And that can be really tricky, as from a teacher standpoint. If we have 24 students and they're all making different choices about what they want to do in their game, um, it could get out of hand. But where can we provide them a little bit of opportunity in the class activity? This could be something as simple as, taking this game psychology approach. If students are supposed to give a report, could they give a report? Could they make a podcast? Could they give a speech? Could they make a comic book as their report? So, what are those ways that we could diversify the way students show mastery over a topic? Um, that's really what games do really well, and that's why we love to play them. Um, and I think this is a great example of what Will Wright, the game designer of The Sims, he talks about when I make a game, he says, I'm dealing with the technology, the game I'm making, but I'm also dealing with the player's imagination. And that's something we can really think about as teachers too, is how do we tap into that player imagination component of, what we can say is, I design a problem as a teacher and the players solve it using their experience. And that's from a game designer perspective and someone who makes educational games. I'm always thinking about, what is the player doing? So here's the activity, or here's the problem. What's the player doing? And more we can think about that as teachers of, in this activity, what are my players doing? And again, if they're just lower on Bloom's taxonomy and, well, they need to remember this and they need to learn that, it's not going to have that same sort of motivational hook that we would have if we say, well, I want my players to explore this topic. I want them to create blah, 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 blah. I really like this quote from Constance Steinkuhler, is a games researcher, and she says, games are well-defined constraints with ill-defined solutions. And I really, it's not easy, but I love making my class activities like that. I love to say, okay, if I give my students these constraints and I say, I don't care how you solve it, just solve it, it gives them lots of ideas and opportunities there. And of course, one thing to note is this works really well with like a rubric based grading system too. If we push students towards more problem based experience, then we need things like rubrics that can really kind of capture the flexibility of how they may submit an assignment. And so, kind of thinking about this a little bit more, this also taps into what we know about adult learners. And so, with games, they're presenting a problem, players have to solve it. And that's what adult learners really love in their learning. They love things that are problem centered rather than content oriented. So, I don't necessarily want to sit and memorize some grammar. I'd like to use that in a business presentation because that's the job and that's why I'm learning a language, perhaps. Um, going over this too, we look at number two over there in the upper right. We also want to think about how can those problems be solved using the learner's experiences. Adults love to be able to tap into their own experience and bring that experience into a problem, including the mistakes they've made. And I think, again, psychologically and talking about motivation of games, one thing games do really well is if I fail, I get to try again. If I fail, I get to try again over and over and over. So how can we give students that opportunity to try something, use their experience to solve the problem? If it doesn't work, they get to try again. So that balance can be really tricky to hit, but we can get there with a lot of well-designed lesson plans. And something here when we think about this too of using games in the classroom is there's different types of games. And if we think about this, Quantric Foundry is a research company that kind of looks into the types of games people play, and they break it into this little quadrant here. And you know, many times we think about games, we think of fast-paced competitive activities, competitions or races that we may have in the classroom, and that's very kind of player kinetic. And what that means is lots of activity amongst lots of players. But there's a whole other type of activity, around games, and that's often when we talk about people getting lost in a video game or spending hours and hours and hours in a video game. It's sometimes these slower, more problem-solving type of activities that they really love, the more cerebral and the more world type of activities. And so that balance is really important. You know, talk to a lot of teachers with games. It's something I do as well is I think about games that shot in the arm to boost motivation, at the beginning of a class and get everybody excited. Um, but often that motivation can be short-lived because once that kinetic activity is over, the students are starting to lose interest. But what are those bigger, maybe longer problem-solving activities that I can do? And what's interesting about this is the research into gamer psychology shows that this is the case, that that type of gameplay, the slower, more cerebral gameplay is evenly distributed across the world as the kinetic action-based gameplay. Whether it's, Australia, New Zealand, Southeast Asia, South America, gamers all like these different types of games. So what can we do? And it may seem, if you're new to games, kind of counterintuitive, but often a good game can slow our students down because that gives them the chance to think and reflect. And then as they're thinking and reflecting, language can be in there, right? Kind of, moving on with this a little bit more, what's really kind of critical here and to summarize everything. So if you could think about, one key point this presentation is self-determination theory. And this is a strong underpinning of games. And when we make games, whether they're for education or more commercial games, we're always thinking about three things. What are the competencies that our players can show us, and how can we let them show them? What's the autonomy that the players have in terms of making their own choices? And what is the relatedness that they get to show with other people? Now, probably everybody watching this is looking and saying like, well, that's just a good classroom. And exactly, I think one of the fun things about having a hand in game development and a hand in teaching is I often see the same discussions, but just with different vocabulary. Um, so, we can really think of what a game does really well, a good classroom also does really well. And so, designing class activities, we have to think about those competencies, right? Can we give students challenging or bonus objectives? Can we give them controls that are easy to be mastered? And same thing with autonomy. Can we give players choices? Are there rewards as feedback or encouragement? And then, relatedness, that idea of um, interacting with others. And I think this is really critical is often, with video games especially, we may think of player and game and that single interaction between player and game, but it's often player with game, player with other player, player with the internet. They're moving across spaces to interact with other people. And so can we make that possible for them to really get a deep level of engagement? Um, the short answer is, as humans, we love to solve problems and we love to stew on problems. How can we make good problems for our classroom? And thinking about this a little bit more, it goes the same into gamification. And if you're unfamiliar with gamification, it's basically taking game ideas or game mechanics out of games and putting them into the real world or different situations. And often in the classroom, we see gamification as what they say is points, badges, and leaderboards, right? Students do something, they get a point, or they do something, they get a badge. Um, but that type of gamification can often have a negative effect. Actually, Graham Stanley, educator, worked for British Council last I checked, did some work into this, and he found that his students got super engaged at the beginning of gamification, and then it quickly started to drop off the following semester because the points, badges, and leaderboards were great for an initial boost of engagement, and then they lost out. But what we can think about as teachers is how do we push those gamification elements in our classroom towards more what we would maybe call positive gamification. So positive gamification are those things of feeling a sense of accomplishment, right? Epic meaning, what it's like, I want to do this because it's bigger than me and it's something I can contribute to. Or creative, feedback, and that idea of being able to participate in something, make something, get feedback on it, share it with other people. Those are much more of the hooks that we have in games that players really resonate with. Whereas those scarcity ideas, the points, the badges, and leaderboards, those are what we kind of call negative gamification, loss and avoidance. Like, oh, if I don't do this, I'm going to lose out, or I've got to get that badge before someone else does. That scarcity. Those can often be short-lived bonuses. So instead, thinking about again going back to how to get my students to feel that self-determination of I've made choices, I've interacted with others, and I've shown my skills and ability. So as we work through this, these are the ideas we can kind of like kick around and play with a little bit, and it's not easy, thinking about, baking these into our classrooms. Um, Games, you may make one game every 2 years, but as teachers, we have to make 6 lesson plans a day. So it can be hard to kind of do this all the time, but thinking about what are those activities that we can make in advance that are really rock solid and really amplify a lot of this that we can bring into the classroom when it makes sense. Um, and this goes into if we could kind of like truncate this all down, we could talk about the different player types. There's Bartles is a researcher who identified basically 4 main types of players. And says, look, they're socializers. They just want to like hang out with other people and interact. Explorers like to not really play with the other players. They want to go off and like explore this environment and go see what's going on. Achievers, badges, points. That's what they want. They want to, get that notoriety. And the last one is called killer, which is a little bit of a misnomer, but killers just basically like to win against other people. They want to be the best against all the other players. And, we think about big games again, that idea of Fortnite or Call of Duty. We may think all gamers, there's that killer archetype. But really, Bartles found that basically 1 to 10% of players really fit that description of winning over others, kind of the core, gamer base, so to speak. Um, but socializers are by far the biggest group of gamers. And then, of course, we have achievers and explorers as well. So when we think about bringing games to the classroom, we might want to think beyond just a game that has 1 or 2 students win, but what's a game that players can socialize around? What's a game where players can explore? And, if we think about this again, going back to Bloom's taxonomy, there are those verbs perhaps we could think about with different types. So, I'm going back to my shelf of games, thinking about that literacy, like I want a game that gets my students socializing. My learning objectives or learning outcomes that I'm thinking about, I want things like students will be able to contribute, students will be able to construct, students will be able to help. Um, if I'm looking at those explorers and thinking, what could I do to get my students exploring a world? I want to use things like choose and discover and locate. So again, matching the right, game to the right learning outcome can be super important because, games can be fun in the classroom, but students still want to know, why are we doing this? Parents especially want to know, why are my students or my children doing this, right? And so, if we can really concretely tie it in, say, hey, we're doing this game because it's going to let us, do these language activities or do this learning activity. It gives us a much more solid foundation to build upon, right? And so again, this all kind of ties back into this idea of, you know, before we use a game, before we go up to our shelf and pick what we're going to play, um, success really kind of starts with backward design and with planning. You know, often we may think about from a game, it's like, ooh, that game will really motivate my players. Let's play it. But why? You know, and so when I work with games in my class, or when I work with other teachers on games in their classrooms, I always start with those course goals, right? How will my students be different by the end of the course? How will my students be different by the end of the game or the end of the activity? How will I know they have changed? What are those competencies that we talk about in self-determination theory? Um, what are they demonstrating to me to show me that they have changed? You know, the learning outcomes, right? What must students be able to think or do to be successful? I want to make sure that those learning outcomes are clearly mapped to the types of things they can do in the game, right? And then, finally, that's what I'm going to pick the game, right? So I go through my course goals, my final assessment, my learning outcome. I'm like, okay, you know, Quandary would be a great game here. Maybe something as simple as Wordle. Hey, I just want to use Wordle. That'll be a really great way to kind of set this up. And so, thinking about these sorts of things can really kind of elevate a game past just a simple activity into something a lot more, rich. And I think kind of to wrap this up and kind of wind it down, what should we do? Talk about games and using game psychology to hook players. Um, Here's what games do really well. They have a story that justifies what happens next, right? Why am I doing this? Oh, because I need to go do that, and then that, and then that, and then I win. Um, and then those long-term goals can be broken down, right, into short, clear goals, right? So I know I need to get way over there, but along the way, I've got to, get the magic sword. I've got to, make a friend and start to developing my party for my adventure. Those little one more goal things. And then along the way, I'm constantly feeling that improvement, right? I'm getting better and better and better. Um, and finally, I think what games do really well is their experience. And games don't teach. That's I'm going to stake that claim. I don't think they teach, but they provide experiences that we can teach around, right? And I think what's really fun about this, thinking about this from a perspective, all the things that I just listed here, it's what a good classroom does, right? You know, a good classroom lets students know why they need to know this, right? Hey, here's why you need to know this information. Our long-term goal is this, and here's how we're going to do that along the way to make sure you can meet that goal, right? And then a slow, steady progress where we can see, hey, I am getting better at this. I am, making improvements. So again, a lot of game game design is really good teaching. That's something Ken Bain talks about what the best college teachers do. It's a great book and really lays out this idea of, there are ways we can approach things for our classroom to really get students kind of hooked and motivated. And it's what games do. And I think the more time we can spend really thinking carefully about our activities in the classroom, the more that we can kind of like, lay this out and get that practice and get that development. Some checking out the chat here just a little bit as we wind down the session here. But I'm curious to know what are some of the games and activities that people play in their classroom? Because I see Brzezinski says Dungeons and Dragons tabletop game would be cool in a language classroom. Something like that would be fantastic. And this goes back into this idea of students being able to like build a character and tell stories, right? If you never played Dungeons and Dragons, it's basically like a role play. Everyone assumes a character, and there's some math involved and things like that. But great example of a narrative world building that gets people, hooked right off the bat, right? Um, Looking around here too, let's see, Jeopardy. So again, Jeopardy is one of those great games that, all teachers use, right? Because it gives us that quick thing, achievements, right? I'm winning. I know more. I can show my competency because I know this information. Um, you know, Kahoot. I see Kahoot in the chat. That's a great example. If we go back to that Sammer model, um, really it's a substitution, right? Um, Maybe a little bit of modification there. Kahoot's just a multiple choice test, right? What makes it so special? The engagement. I get to see the other player scores and we get to see how well I'm doing against them. It's something that we can all do collaboratively. There's instant feedback. So, that idea of like building out a little bit of material there. I see Munis's Minecraft, excellent game for the classroom because it's just creatively. People can do all sorts of different things there in that. And so, pick your game. I think that's the best advice I can give is people are looking, lots of great ones in the chat. You can start to research and look around. Bamboozle seems to be a popular one there. But pick a game you're comfortable with. Pick a game that works for your classroom technologically. I know, sometimes we maybe talk about a game and it's like, well, I don't have computers in my classroom. An example might be there's a video game called Among Us where you have to find a spy. Um, Among Us is a video game, but there's another game called Resistance, same game but card based. There's another game that's completely paper based, exact same game called Werewolf. And so you can kind of pick, depending on your technology level for your classroom, same game, same kind of learning outcomes you can get out of your students. Um, and again, enhancing our games literacy can really help us make those decisions on what games to pull off the shelf and whatnot. Um, so kind of with that, we can wrap this up and do some questions, but I just want to say thanks to everybody real quick. My email is here. It's kuhnj1@ohio.edu if you have any questions or anything like that. I'm also back on social media, so you can find me at jkuhn72 at bluesky.social. I just opened that up, so that's new. But yeah, I'm looking forward to answering some questions and having a little bit of chat before we hear from Marina.
Well, Jeff, thank you. The session was very interesting and informative. And I have some questions here. We have some time for some questions. So
Perfect.
see, here's the first question for Maria Inés Noceda. And she is asking the following about safety and security. What about this? How can we manage and control those aspects, safety and security?
Yeah, and that's where, every game has a rating, so what they call the ESRB rating. So definitely take a look at like, what age appropriate level is for your game. And then, you know, it can be tricky with online games, right? So when you're in an online game and your students could talk to anyone in the world, that can come with pros and cons. And so, is a game offline or online or, something like Kahoot's a great example that came up where I can invite people using a special code. So kind of keeping those ideas in mind of, can I control who gets into the game? Is it online or offline based? And whether the age levels are is a great kind of initial idea of how to look at safety and security in a game. Yeah.
Thank you. The next question is from Mauricio Viñas, and he makes a statement. Simulators can become truly realistic tools. Are there simple tools that allow us to create our own games?
Yeah, there's tons. And there is so I'm thinking right off the top of my head, there's one, and I can put these in the chat. There's Godot, which is a game development engine that's super simple. GameStar Mechanic is another one. Scratch is another one that was made by MIT. And all those are very simple and can be super cool ways to have students practice and use language. A friend of mine, Sebastian Drubel, has done this with his French students. He actually had his French students make video games as part of their activities, and their engagement with the language increased. He's got a lot of great research out there. Sebastian Drubel at Carnegie Mellon. You can take a look at his research out there. But I'll
Mm,
put those games in the chat.
lovely, thank you. And this is a question from Sanat Andrea Oliveros. What is the difference between gamification and game-based methodology? Are they related at some point?
Yeah, they are. I mean, I could talk for another 2 hours on that. It's a great question. I think kind of like game-based learning is we're really when we use games as a foundation of a classroom, like we would a book, for instance. Whereas gamification is we're taking ideas from games, like game mechanics, we say, and pulling them out of a game and putting them into a classroom. So in a game-based classroom, we might use Minecraft, but in a gamified classroom, the classroom itself is a game. Students go on quests or they explore things and get, points. So, a little different there.
Thank you. And I think it might be the last question that we have some time. We have some time left. Any video games that deal with literature? This question is for Naomi Ciceroni.
Deal with literature, as in like literature?
Yes.
Ooh, um, there is, okay. There's a couple out there. There's one called Eulogy for a Dead World. And that one, um, students go through this kind of like science fiction type world, but they have to write. So by the end of the game, they've written a story. There's another one that's on mobile called Device 8, and it actually, your character moves through a book. So those are two kind of like just off the top of my head literature-based games. Yeah.
Well, Jeff, thank you very much. I mean, your session was very informative and generated lots of comments in the chat box while we were, watching your session, and some very good questions here in the Q&A. But we have to go on break. We have a 5-minute break, so let's see. So let's just if you are gonna hang around with us, Jeff, and you can throw the links that you mentioned in the
Will
chat
do.
room. But we're gonna go on a 5-minute break, and then we'll start the next session.
All right.
Teachers, well, thank you very much. I noticed all your reactions, your hearts, lots of thumbs up here in this session. Notice that you are having a good time. So remember that we're gonna have right now a 5-minute break. Before we go on that break, let me just share my screen with you. Perfect. So we're gonna go on a 5-minute break and see you in a little bit. So let's go on a break with our friends, with Share with Friends. So thank you, teachers. See you in a little bit. 5 minutes exactly. See you in a little bit. Oh, hello, teachers, everybody. So I hope you had a nice break like a couple of minutes ago. So I hope you are enjoying our session today. So let's see. So in the chat room, just let me know how is the weather in this city you are joining from while I project my screen. So let's see. Lovely. Lovely. I see. I see. So very cold in Prague, a little bit cold here, hot in Buenos Aires. Oh, everything going really fast. Lovely. So let's see. So let's get going. So let's see. So, Myriam, welcome. So we're in our second session, and you are you've been with us at Macmillan's webinars for a couple times. So tell us a little bit about yourself, so I don't bore our teachers with reading your bio data. So just share something that you like, with our teachers.
Well, I'm a teacher. I'm an English teacher. I have always wanted to become an English teacher. Since I was a kid, I didn't know how to speak in English. I just knew a little bit of French and Spanish, and I, like pretended to be an English teacher with my dolls and my toys, and it was really cool. So this is something that I have always capital A enjoyed being teachers. And I have to confess something that I didn't like little kids. I didn't like young learners because I thought that you couldn't do anything with them. So I started teaching, the fifth graders, sixth graders. But then one day in one of the schools that I was working, the principal said, Myriam, you have to go to the preschool kids. And I was like, no, please don't. So I took my guitar and the only thing that I did was singing and dancing with the kids. And then I started, like noticing that they learned a lot and they did something really cool. So now I even write I even write books for these little kids. So yeah. So yes, I love teaching. I was telling Will that I think that I was born with a piece of chalk in one hand and an eraser on the other side. So really love being teachers.
Thank you for sharing that. I think a lot of teachers and identify what you mentioned. Remember as a child before becoming a teacher, also before working in publishing. I used to play with my cousins and me being a teacher, not an English teacher, but a teacher. But I think a lot of us identify with what you just mentioned. I think at one point we always dreamt being teachers, and I see lots of love for sharing this with us. So the screen is all yours. And teachers, as a reminder, the Q&A is open. I'll be looking at the questions to share with Myriam at the end of the session. So enjoy.
Thank you very much. So it's time for me to share my screen. And let's see. I know that you can see this, but let me just get the chat out so that I can just read all the time. Okay. So let me just play it. Oh, wait a second. Here it is. So can you see me? Can you see my, yeah? Okay, very good. But then again, okay, let me just, very good. Okay, so now I'm reading. Very good. So I am very happy to be here with you again. So it's been 3 years, I think, that I've been in this beautiful and incredible event that Macmillan does for all these for teachers. So thank you very much. Thank you, Macmillan, for inviting me again. And of course, the goal of these 2 weeks have been, to share everything that we have proved proven that it's okay to work with. Anyway, so last week I attended the Harry Waters and Will Rickson's, webinar, and Harry Waters did something that I really enjoyed. And it is called the waterfall answer. And I really enjoyed it. How many of you, attended that session and you know what a waterfall answer is? Let me see. Oh, very good. Okay, Laura. Okay, I was there. So you know what it means. So I'm going to explain it very, very quickly. And this is how it goes. I am going to ask a question and everybody is going to answer. But at the same time, that means that when I say go, you're going to click enter, not before. Let's see how teachers take instructions and see if you pay attention to what the teacher said. Ready? Okay, so here goes my first question. Okay, the first question is, who here has used characters in the classroom? Are you ready to answer? 1, 2, 3, go. Ooh, see how this is beautiful. I love this idea from Harry Potter. See, it's like, me. Very good. I do. Yes, very good. Excellent. Rarely. I mean, it's not all of us. Okay, second question. Stop answering. Stop answering. Ah, very good. Now, the second question is, how comfortable are you using character in class? Come on, go. Not much, a lot, very much, great, very enjoyed, it depends, it's great. See, so you know that not all of us are exactly the same. And I have to confess something. I was not a fan of using characters, puppets, or even stuffed toys in my class. It was very difficult for me to work with so many things at the same time. You know, the book, the flashcards that I made, the blackboard that in my time it was green, the tape recorder. I know that the tape recorder for you is something brand new, but you know, nowadays it just you click and then it's all the way, you know, and it's really nice. So, but one of my peers in the school that I was working, she had a dog, and his name was Mateo. And Mateo was a very, you know, like popular friend in that school. And the kids loved Mateo so much. They loved when Mateo made mistakes or did a different pronunciation. So they were so happy. So I said, well, why not? I'm going to do something like that, and I am going to decide to do a different thing because I didn't like using characters. And something that I have to confess as well is that I know that you won't believe me, but I was really, really, really shy. And when I started using characters, it was like, huh. When every time that I was in front of the class, it was very nice. So because you know you have this bonding to your students, right? This nice attachment. So in my class, I had an albino kid. So I did this. I made an albino character, okay? And it was incredible the way that this kid, and of course I named him Jerry. There's always a Jerry in my characters. And I will never forget his face when he saw Jerry, the albino kid. It was amazing. It was like, ah, well, a kid like me. And then we even made sunglasses for him. And we did lots of things because we knew that when he went into recess, that he had to wear, you know, sunglasses. So one of the kids said, why not make him sunglasses too to Jerry? So we made sunglasses. So it was, of course, this is not the real one because it was a long, long time ago, right? So whenever we are in the classroom, we have to act like different people, you know. And when we're teaching English, it's something that as teachers and as a non-native teacher, you have to, you know, come up with real different things to make your students understand and being able to produce a language, okay? Now, the age is very important because you know that you're not going to use this with sixth graders, okay? You're not going to use this with teenagers, but maybe you can actually ask them to bring characters from outside and see if you can work with them, right? So next question. Why use characters in the class? I mean, why is it that we can use characters in the class? And of course, something which is very important is that the characters are important when we're teaching English, because otherwise, how can you teach the third person? How can you teach the ing, etc., right? Very good. Everything that you're saying for engagement to make students participate, imagine making engagement and fun. The students will love learning. Yeah. So let's see. The first thing is the characters will catch your students' attention. They foster connections with them. They make lessons more lively and entertaining. Something which is important is that the characters are not the magic ones. The magical ones are the teachers who are going to give life to those characters. And for that reason, teachers must have, very good attitude and energy, right? Remember, nobody's watching you. The coordinator is not there. Parents are not there. So your kids are going to really enjoy it, right? So, of course, we know that they help shy or anxious students to feel less intimidated when speaking through a character, because it's like every time that you are behind a mask, it's not you who's talking, it's the character. You even give them a different voice, and the kids, they might just like it, okay? They provide meaningful and memorable experiences to enhance students' memory retention. I always use this term, meaningful and memorable. Being an M&M teacher is something which is very, very important because we have to make our classes meaningful and memorable, right? And of course, like Tamar is saying, they are very important for role play and dialogues. Excellent, okay? Now, as well, we know that we have to practice our language. So characters can bring real life situations or imaginative context to practice different kinds of language skills. So it's really, really important for us to remember that the kids will imitate those characters, okay? And sometimes it's really, really nice when our books have different characters, and those characters will be growing up with our students, and those characters have different personalities. So sometimes we have to say, okay, look at this page now. Who remembers Maya? Who remembers Raya? Sorry, who remembers Simon? What is Simon like? So let's pretend that we are Simon, and we can do something as he would do, right? So they can lead games, ask questions, because when we teach how to ask questions is very difficult. How do you teach kids to ask a question and have a negative answer or a positive answer if you don't have, like different kids to help you? So that would be very important. So let's do a very, very practical activity. Look at this girl, okay? This girl is telling the students, this is Raya, okay? So Raya says, look at the picture and find 5 similarities with your hometown, okay? And then the kids will actually do it. Sometimes they do it in their own language. Don't worry. The only thing that you have to do is put those words into the language, not translating, but put what they say into English, right? So in this case, you can see that we're going to present vocabulary. How would you present vocabulary? Well, how would teachers introduce vocabulary for 3rd graders or for very little ones or for big ones? The steps must always be the same. First of all, you have to, very good, flashcards. Thank you very much. Always, always, always use visual aids, flashcards, cutouts, your book, something around, story cards. Excellent. So the first pictures. So in this case, as my kids already know the numbers, I would just go like this. Oh, really? Very good pictures, everything. So in this case, I'm going to tell you what Jerry is like. Jerry is a little bit shy. So every time that he says a word, he says it in a very low tone of voice, right? And Mia, so who is he? He is Jerry. He is Jerry. And now, who is she? She is Mia. She is Mia. Mia is, she doesn't mind saying things incorrectly or not, and she uses this voice, right? So in this case, what you're going to do is If I show you this, the kids will have to say the word in a very shy mood, okay? If I show Mia, the kids will have to say it, like loud, right? Okay, so imagine, let's pretend. I will pretend that you're doing it beautifully in your house. Ready? So number 4, carrots. Now do it 3 times. Carrots, carrots, carrots. Now, what about number 5? Tomatoes. Number 3 times. Tomatoes, tomatoes, tomatoes. So in a way, I mean, we're doing exactly the same thing. We're giving the word. The kids will repeat it corally, and then we can do it individually by just pointing out the characters, right? That will give you a different way to do the same activity that we have always done before, okay? And of course, it's not like saying, and of course, sometimes we can say, now let's do it in a scared way. So we are very scared. So number 3, peaches. And of course, this is cool because nobody's looking at your face. They are watching another face. So if I do this, I go like that, okay? So this is so much fun for the kids. And of course, for the teacher, when the teacher enjoys doing these type of activities, the kids really enjoy doing exactly the same things because they say, well, if the teacher is that crazy, why not? We can have a ball, right? So something is it's very important is that we always choose. I mean, it's not that you will have to do lots of things. How much time do you think I mean, you can do these things? It's like cutting out, pasting, and that's it. It's like 50 minutes. Problems of connection. I thought it was going like because it's correction. This is something that is really nice. When the kid is making a mistake, it's not the teacher who's going to make the to do the like the to say it correctly, but maybe what some of the characters might do it, right? So this is really cool. Now, look at this really nice guy. This guy is very intellectual and he is the grammar guy. So every time that the kids will look at this guy, they will know that there is something that the book is going to tell us to be able to speak in a better way. So this is grammar time. And we know that sometimes in grammar it's very difficult because grammar in English is very difficult. Everything was beautiful with a verb to be. It's like, I am a student, I am not a student, am I a student? But then the verb to have came, and it was like, I have a cat, I have not a cat, have I a cat? I mean, British English is really cool because what you do is, I have got a cat, have you got, but again. But no, we have different things. So I really want to introduce 2 very good friends of mine. Okay, so meet Dewey. Okay, so this is Dewey. Hello, Dewey. Hello, Myriam. Okay, so this is Dewey. And Dewey is a very intelligent guy. But guess what? He always works with I, you, they, we, but he doesn't work with he, she, and it. But we have, oh, hello, Dossie. So he's Dozzy and he's Dewey, okay? So hello, Dossie. Hello, Dewey. Let's work together. Okay. I am going to work only with I, you, we, they, okay? Okay. And I am going to work with he, she, and it. Ooh, that's really cool. Okay. So in this case, we are going to work in a different way. So Dewey is only going to have, like green stuff. So the do for question and the doesn't. So he will, the doesn't is somewhere here. I don't know where it is, but it exists. Here it is. Okay, so we have don't. So Dewey is always going to have this, right? But what happens with this red one? So he's Dozy, okay? And this one is going to work with does, doesn't, or that. And of course, we have another one who is, ASCII. So ASCII is always asking questions. So every time you show this ASCII, the kids will have to make a question, okay? But will they use Dozy or will they use doing, okay? So in this case, what is it that we're doing? We're actually making very abstract concepts very visible, right? So we have, okay. So in this case, look what I found. Look at his eyes. There is an S in his eyes. I bought this like on, it was yesterday on Sunday. I bought this, and this is really cool. This has an S in his eyes, and that means that every time that we talk about him in the present, we will have to use he walks, she runs, he whatever, and she as well, right? So we have both of them, and they have just, very nice eyes. So that means that these dozy will actually, they are best friends forever. The does and the S. Of course, the S, goes away when it's a question, but that's another story. And this is something that they will have to talk about when they make questions, okay? So as you can see, it's something that it's very simple, super simple. The only thing is to just bring this to life, okay? So what else is there, with using characters? Well, first of all, they can reinforce cultural learning. They can introduce customs, idioms, or tradition associated with English-speaking countries or their own countries. So maybe we can actually have like the typical characters from that country. If I tell you I want to bring a British character in my class, who would you bring? Yes, I did that with myself, Elizabeth. And if you want it, I can send it to you via email. I always have surprise. I am a very sharing person. Teachers that share, share joyness. Okay, so in this case, in Mr. Paddington, very good, Paddington. Harry Potter. Why didn't I think about Harry Potter? Yes. Clifford, I forget about Clifford. But the first thing is, I will tell you later, Elizabeth. So we have Paddington, of course. So we can have Paddington saying different idioms instead of he can teach the kids saying cheers instead of saying goodbye. So there are lots of things that they can do. But what about in Poland? I know that there is a very important dragon in Poland, so we can have this dragon in Poland. Or, okay, for those of you, because I've seen that there are many from Mexico, my compatriotas. So tell me, which one would you immediately think about? What is his name? For those of you who are not Mexican, I will attack him, but I need a character. Well, this one is El Chapulín Colorado. In Mexico, we call him El Chapulín Colorado, and it's like the red grasshopper. Okay, so so we can actually give culture about these things, or the way that these characters would produce the language. And another one would be this one, Speedy Gonzales, right? So if we want our students to do things in a very quick way, we can do it with Speedy Gonzales, right? Or we can actually talk about Speedy Gonzales, or lots of the things that lots of characters that you can think of, and then little by little, you can actually build them into your class. Now, imagine this lesson, okay? And then again, we have Simon here. Simon is going to tell you that he's going to work with critical thinking skills, right? And sometimes with emotional aspects. So this is really this is a very nice character as well in the book. Every time that the kids see it, it's like, I will have to make a question, or I will have to answer a question. In this case, we have this lesson with different parts of the world, right? So why not bringing a character from outside and say, well, this is a Spanish character. What kind of a Spanish person would that be? Et cetera, right? So as you can see, using characters will never have endings. Never. It's you will always be able to use the character. You will always be able to enjoy behind the character. And something which is very important as well is that they actually build social emotional skills, because working with their peers to interact with or create characters promote teamwork. This is something which is really, really nice. And when you actually do the characters and the kids actually do the characters and they make their own puppets, they can make puppets, not the average puppet. So maybe they can have a puppet wearing eyeglasses or on a wheelchair or that. This is a very important question. What if characters are used daily? Do students feel uninterested or bored? Yes. On a daily basis, students can actually feel, like, and then again, here comes whoever that is. When it comes to with the very little ones, you can use them every single day and they will really love it. When you use it with third graders or fourth graders, maybe one day you don't use them. And some of the kids will say, teacher, where is Jerry? Or where is Mia? And then you go like, okay, so here it is. So it is very important for us to bear that in mind. Something that you do on a single, every single time, then it's not that, that nice. As Jeff was saying, I mean, it's if you play all day, it's not something that gives you, this passion of what is going to be next, right? So these characters can allow students to step into someone else's shoes because maybe they are going to build a character, a puppet with their socks that is on a wheelchair, or a blind kid. In Jaén, I have a teacher, and she had these puppets, and well, not puppets, these flashcards with and then what she did was to put like silicone glue, and then the eyes and the nose and the mouth, the kids can actually feel the the feelings. So if it's the mouth upside down and the ear and the eyebrows, so it's really nice. So we can actually do it, and then we can actually do different things with the kids and for the kids, because that sometimes you have a kid who's not able to do things as the other ones, and maybe it's like, well, he needs time to do, and so this character is going to need time to work, right? So as you can see, when we talk about characters, we usually think that the characters will be there for our kids. Some books do have characters. Some of the lessons will be definitely used and worked by the characters, right? So as you can see, there are lots of things that you can do with your kids, and some you were mentioning about role playing. And this is something which is important. Remember that when we're teaching little kids, the first thing that we have to do is very controlled dialogues. And once the kids know the controlled dialogues, little by little, they will be able to do a role play, because they will have all the grammar and everything that it's needed to do the role play. So as you can see, and what I would like to tell you is, like, as you leave here today, don't worry about being a perfect teacher or a very, formal teacher that you have to teach English in a very formal way. Remember, students don't need a perfect teacher. They need a happy teacher who is going to get them excited to come to school and to grow a love for learning. So my following question would be, are you a happy teacher? Now, with lots of icons, please send me all your icons if you're a happy teacher and you're, yes, very good. Now, I love, look at all these icons. These are really cool. Look at this. This is really, really cool. And this is exactly what we really want to have in our class. Happy teachers, enjoying exactly what they do. Sometimes we get tired because we're not superheroes. Well, we are superheroes, but we can get tired. And I really want to share this because I am so lucky to be surrounded with all these happy teachers throughout the world. We can see teachers from Chile, Mexico, Spain, Egypt. So thank you very much for sharing your time with us. because I know that you've been here and that you are answering. So it's really, really so nice to hear from you. This is my email, so that if you're interested, I can send you lots of lots of ideas, or we can have, I can actually send you these little characters that the only thing that you have to do is print, cut, and be happy. Okay. So tell me if you've got any questions or any doubts.
Miriam, thank you very much. I mean, I think you can see all the reactions that we have here. We were stuck
Oh,
to the screen, listening to how you gave us all those tips on how to use characters in the classroom. So we have a couple questions. So I'm gonna go for I organize them in a way that we can.
look at all
Um,
these icons. I am so happy, really.
Yes.
Thank
I
you. This
mean,
is
I,
so
I think
cool.
I can speak for, I mean, you can see the reactions, but I think all
Wow.
the things that you gave us, and they can be implemented. And I think teachers are very thankful for that. So
Thank
let
you.
me ask, go on over the questions. So
Sure.
let's see. Number one, characters are suitable for which classes? This is for Nitya. I'm just gonna assume that it means on what level, like preschool, primary. What do you recommend using characters?
Well, it's a must for preschool kids. It's really a must because we can do lots of things with the characters, because you know that preschool kids, that would be like from 3 years old to 6 years old. I would just, like they think that they are real. So they actually talk to them. They don't even look at you when you have the character or the puppet. And I would definitely use throughout the whole primary elementary school, from first grade to sixth grade, doing it in a different way. For example, for the big ones, for fourth graders, fifth graders, and sixth graders, what I would do is to actually ask the students to come up with a character that they are, that they like, that they are fans. Like, for example, Harry Potter. Or, I mean, of course, we have to be very careful of what kind of characters they choose, because I don't want to have characters that are not that, like they cannot be a nice role model. So I would strongly believe that using characters help any kind of students. And some of you were asking, like, what about seniors? I am a senior and I love using characters. So, and if I have a class with a teacher using characters, then of course you laugh at it. So yeah, so I would recommend for everybody. And something which is important is that we have to remember that sometimes you are not very, it's like you're a little bit shy because maybe sometimes you do not how to pronounce the words. Imagine that it says table, and you maybe, if you are a Spanish speaking person, you would say table, and it's table. So the character can actually, like behind the character, if you make a mistake, nobody's going to laugh at you. But and of course you have to work on the kids saying like, nobody laughs at nobody. It's like, uh, please. But it is very important for that, no? So maybe even to have a character who's always going to make a mistake, so this character who makes mistakes is going to be, like taught by all the rest of the class. So that's really cool.
Well, you just answered one of the other questions, which is how can we deal or what can we do with kids who feel shy about speaking and participating in class? So you just answered one question from an anonymous attendee. So let's go to the next one. In your experience, what is the ideal number of characters for a class?
I would say that, for example, in with the very little ones, I would use two characters, of course, girl and boy, so that they have everybody stand out, all the boys stand out, all the girls stand out. I would use two characters throughout the whole year, because they get to, the characters, and they can have different personalities, etc. And for like older kids, I would use like 4 or 5 characters, because when you ask them to work in teams, and they can be, one character at the time. So maybe you can have 3 boys and 3 girls, or three, and sometimes you can actually choose, instead of human beings, you can have animals, or you can have moods. And for the big ones, you can actually do emojis, use emojis, and maybe they can actually draw their own emojis with a personality that they want to respond. So yeah.
This actually links to the next question, what you just mentioned. And this is from Isabella Borlos. I teach teenager students, 15 to 19-year-olds. Any characters
God
you
bless
would
you.
recommend or way to teach to get students more interested in English lessons?
Well, for teenagers, something which is really, really nice is to ask them to bring a biography of the character they like. Could be an actress, a singer, uh, whoever. And then you ask your students to, I mean, like, for example, Taylor Swift is the first that comes into my mind. Taylor Swift, what does she do? She sings. So maybe this is her personality. So which one of the characters that I have here would you choose to make a role play, a repetition? Or you can actually, when you talk to the kids, and this is something that Jeff said as well, is like, tell them what you expect from them when using this. It's like, I am using characters not because I want I want you to feel, like young, or you're not little kids. I want to use characters because that way you can actually loosen your tongue through these characters. So don't worry, no? Maybe choosing, when you ask your students to choose a character, it really, really works. Okay.
And now we go from teenagers to what about adults when teaching? What is your advice for effective learning? This is from Carabas Denise. And now we go from teenagers to adults.
Adults they're always asking questions. Why do you do this? Why do you do that? So with adults, what I would do, of course, it would be, like, it all depends on the topic that you're teaching, because sometimes it is very topic based. So maybe if you're teaching, I don't know, like I don't know, that it all depends. For example, give me architects or engineers, because they want really to learn English. I wouldn't use characters, of course. I mean, maybe you would use typical people that were not that are not native speakers of the language that you're teaching, and then how is it that they are able to speak? And with adults, what I would do, because adults sometimes we are very afraid of like misspelling some words, and it's like, "Ah, what are they going to think about me? I'm not saying the word correctly." So if you use different different pronunciations, maybe you can have it in YouTube, or you can have in different books that you have different pronunciations from India, from China, from Morocco. I mean, you can use that and say, okay, look, it doesn't matter the way that you pronounce the word, as long as they understand. And then little by little, they say like, okay, I won't be worried about this. So I wouldn't use characters like that, but maybe, of course, it's more role play. So it's like, pretend that you are a secretary and you are the chief, the boss. You are in a hotel, or in a plane, you're the stewardess, and you are the client. So that would be, introducing characters in a different way, without any of the props that I've shown you. Yeah, role
Well,
plays.
this is the last session, the last question that we have time for. So this is from Mario Javier Larrea. How to teach with characters when classes are 100% online, and you cannot always monitor if students are paying attention or fully involved, concentrated on what we're doing.
Well, this is like closing your eyes and having faith that your class is really interesting. And something important is, uh, the first thing is, are you able to see the faces, or like this that I don't see anybody of you but just reading what you're saying? If you're able, that your kids are connected with camera and microphone, it's easier, okay? It will always be difficult to work online because you know that sometimes I remember when it was the COVID and we were teaching online. I remember my third graders or my preschool kids, and then mothers came in the way, and it's very difficult. But I do think that that when you are behind the screen, it's easier for the kids as well. Get them do their own characters and then put them in front of their faces and do exercises so that they can, you know, feel more comfortable. In that case, characters will be used, of course, for a lot of reasons in language practice, but in terms of I feel more confident to be online in front of all of this and without my face showing.
Well, Miriam, it's always a pleasure. As you can see all the love, all the interactions, and and here we
Mhm.
have some hearts, some claps. Thank you very much, and thank you, teachers, for being here with us. So just stick with us for a couple more minutes, and we'll have the last part of this session of Global Teachers Festival. Thank you,
Thank
Miriam.
you very much. See you. I wrote my email there so that you can see it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very
Bye bye.
much. So teachers, thank you for being here with us. I think it's almost time. It's almost time to either go have breakfast if you're in the morning, or if you are ready to have dinner. But before we go, let me just share with you some information. So let's see a little bit. Ta-ta-dum. So I noticed that you are very, very well. Um, you're very you are enjoying the session. So let me just go do this. So let's see, teachers, while I project my screen, can you just share with us what you're doing after this session? So share with us what you're doing after this session. So let's see. Lovely. I see that. Ta-ta-ta. I see that you're doing, oh, lovely. So let me share with you. I am having some issues here. Lovely. So let's see. I'm having some issues projecting my screen today. I don't know what's happening. So let's see. So let me just go back in. So lovely here, teachers. Lovely, see you back. So let's have lunch. Lovely. So I hope now I can be able to share with you my screen. I had some issues before. So let's see. Yay! So it's, always the safe bet for us as teachers. You log in and log back in, and then you have everything ready. So teachers, this is I just like to share with you. Share my friends, share with friends. So tell you a little bit about this new course. Share with friends is all about time we spend together learning in the classroom with our friends and with our families. It highlights inclusivity and the shared nature of learning, situations where each individual's strengths are given a space to grow and shine. Our students love to shine, right? Share with Friends has 7 levels, and it takes students from a pre-A1 to an A2 level in American English. It's designed for schools teaching up to 8 hours. So you notice that we have some of these characters that you just saw in Myriam's session. So we have 4 main areas that I would like to share with you today. Speak with confidence. Share with Friends builds on the success of best-selling series Share It by defining and improving its proven pedagogy. making students speak with success. Each unit is students around getting students speaking confidently by placing new language and vocabulary into everyday situations. Very important that students have context and everyday situations that children are familiar with and they can express themselves. Inclusive mindset. Inclusivity is built into Share with Friends DNA, and students learn how to respect and value views and opinions of everyone around them, helping them make responsible and caring decisions in school and life. Everyone gets to be part of a community. Success. Everyone gets to enjoy success when students with Share with Friends has regular self-assessment and progress tracking. Very important for students to have self-assessment and progress tracking so they can feel they have progress, right, teachers? And this gives each individual, the student, the best chance to feel they have succeeded. And finally, Share with Friends provide comprehensive support for teachers through clear and easy to follow teaching notes, classroom management, and social emotional learning tips, and a wealth of downloadable extra resources, audio and video recordings, and exam practice materials on the next generation platform, Macmillan Education Everywhere platform. And every level comes with an innovative sharebook for each student, fully of ready-to-use pair and small group activities designed to build confidence speaking in low stress setting before sharing with the whole class. And now, please scan the QR code to visit the Share with Friends website, where you can download samples and get access to a little book of inclusivity, where you'll be able to read more about this topic. And I'm going to ask my colleague, Evelina, to drop the product showroom. So if you're interested in navigating and exploring Share with Friends, you'll be able to do so. So I'm going to ask my colleague Evelina to to open the resource so you're able to explore this new course. Also, if you are interested and you're ready to contact one of our sales rep in the place that you are right now, also Evelina is going to open a form so you can request a contact from one of our sales reps. So teachers, before we go, I don't know if you already have access to Advancing Learning podcasts. I know I do. I have to say that I listen to Will and Harry and other podcast invitees while driving or using the metro. So I highly recommend it because you can listen to our Advancing Learning podcast in different scenarios. So also, I will ask Evelina to be able to open this resource so you can click on it and you can follow our podcast. Remember that the podcast is available in different platforms. And I noticed that teachers were asking about the recording, about the certificate of education. This is a reminder that you're going to receive also a little book, a guide to inclusive teaching, and you're going to receive the recording, presentation slides, and more related content related to professional training. So remember, you're going to get this within a week before from today. So today is Monday the 17th. So around a week time. So just keep an eye on your mail. And finally, remember, if you haven't signed up for tomorrow's session, tomorrow is day 7. So we're gonna have 2 sessions, one by Emily Bryson and Anna Cavallero. So if you haven't registered, please do so you can join us here tomorrow on day 7 of the Global Teachers Festival 2025. Just before we go, and just to close the session today, name one key takeaway from today's session in the chat box. So let's see. I'm gonna go read. So one key takeaway from today's in the chat box. So let's see one key takeaway from today's session. So let's take a look at it. Puppets, characters, creativity, using characters, teaching grammar, puppets, gamification, puppets, creativity. Interesting. I see the word creativity coming up again and again and again. And I think it really relates to our two sessions today. The first one by Jeff related to video games, and the second one by Myriam related to using characters in the classroom. At the end of the day, I noticed that the word creativity comes out a lot, and as teachers and as students, we we're creative in the classroom, and we like to help our students be creative as well. So thank you very much for being here today, and see you tomorrow, day 7, Global Teachers Festival. Thank you very much. Have lunch, have breakfast, or have dinner, depending on what part of the world you're in. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you, Myriam. Thank you, Jeff. And see you tomorrow.